We'd appreciate it if anyone hearing this broadcast would
On a
communicate
better
with
term,
us.
I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as the heat ray.
Up your nose when you love the Happy New Year.
I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
Well, no, ad horse divorce, but you picked a weird time to hop on the spider train. This is previously on Peter Parker's, The Spectacular Spider-Man, parentheses, pre-No Way Home edition. Spider-Man 2002. Okay, wait, hang on. Let's be completionists here. These are the Spider-Men we won't be discussing. You got your Turkish Spider-Man, Japanese Spider-Man, fan film Spider-Man, TV movie Spider-Man, both Venom movies. Look, I know it's connected, but please no. Endless cartoon adaptations of varying quality, and the greatest Spider-Man adaptation of them all, Broadway Spider-Man.
That you can rise above.
Actually, really, the best is Into the Spider-Verse. We're just doing the other ones. Okay, 2002's Spider-Man, starring the villain from Molly's Game as Peter Parker, half of the team that exposed Watergate as Mary Jane Watson, and as Harry Osborn, Peter's rich best friend and Mary Jane's boyfriend, this guy, co-starring a lot of 27-year-olds playing teenagers, and as J. Jonah Jameson. It's the only person alive who should ever be cast as J. Jonah Jameson.
And I'll make him infamous!
Listen, you know how this story goes. Boy is bitten by a spider, gains slamming bod, loses Uncle Ben, maintains beloved aunt. But director Sam Raimi makes a few subtle changes from the comics, like that instead of being a boy genius who invents webbing and his own web shooters, Peter Parker is a boy genius whose webbing comes from a very special place, the disgusting Cronenbergian holes in his wrists.
Saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man.
Now, Harry's father is Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe, turned up to 11,000. He's a billionaire industrialist, doing what billionaire industrialists always eventually get around to doing. Getting ripped, rampant property damage, and writing things that make you look super cool and not CGI at all. The Green Goblin's first dastardly deed was disrupting World Unity Day that featured something the entire world could truly unite behind back in 2002. Outdoor Macy Gray concerts.
Baby, I know we had a bad day.
Hey, remember this? Now, in the end, there's a nod to a famous scene from the comics. The Green Goblin self-owns, Harry blames Spider-Man, Peter puts himself into the friend zone, and we were all treated to a really kickin' soundtrack that spawned an iconic hit single everyone still loves and that you won't have stuck in your head on your way home tonight.
When they say that a hero can save us, I'm not gonna stand.
2004's Spider-Man 2 brings back the cast and adds the terrifying drug lord from Boogie Nights, Alfred Molina, as the good-natured and kind scientist Otto Octavius. Octavius has developed a set of artificial intelligence-driven mechanical arms tapped directly into his brain, and surely nothing bad could possibly happen. Otto, we didn't deserve your beautiful mechanical arms. Now, meanwhile, Harry's being a real buzzkill because of course he is. Mary Jane about to marry an astronaut because of course she is. And Peter losing his mojo and questioning whether Spider-Man should even be around anymore. In the end, we see how shredded Toby really is. He goes crowd surfing. Doc Ock sacrifices himself for the greater good. Harry finds out about Peter. Mary Jane finds out about Peter. And even though he's like the worst parts of Roman Roy and Cousin Greg combined, your boy Toby gets the girl. Spider-Man 3, 2007. Director Sam Raimi wanted to make a movie with the Sandman. The Sandman. Sony wanted him to make a movie about Venom, and Spider-Man 2 left off with a vengeful Harry raiding his dad's man cave, set to become the next Green Goblin. Which villain to pick? Let's do all three. So you got Lowell from Wings playing Sandman, a career criminal whose DNA gets infused with sand because comic books were once made for kids. You got Topher Grace playing photographer Eddie Brock, who's always out to stick it to Peter.
Parker, you are such a Boy Scout. When are you gonna give a guy a break?
And you got Harry, who's been hitting his dad's sauna. But hey, let's add more characters. How about instead of a blonde actress playing a redhead, we have a redhead playing a blonde character, Gwen Stacy. So lots of things are happening. Turns out Sandman may have been involved in Uncle Ben's murder. Harry is blackmailing Mary Jane into breaking up with Peter, and also he has a really punk rock scar. And an alien parasite infects Peter, giving him bonus powers, a hairstyle that's just severe, and a new fashion sense, and actually I really love him like this in retrospect. Also, obviously, this is something that happens. Peter sheds the black suit, which finds an ally in Eddie Brock, creating Venom, who teams up with Sandman to take down Spider-Man. Harry and Peter patch things up right before Harry bites it. Venom gets Topher disgraced. Sandman not so bad. It's just dust in the wind, and Peter gets in one last dance with Mary Jane.
Last dance with Mary Jane. One more time to kill the pain.
From director Mark Webb, it's 2012's reboot, The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, the movie retells Spider-Man's origin, but adds in a mystery about Peter's parents that it's gonna completely get resolved to your satisfaction. Starring the less terrifying co-founder of Facebook as Peter, LA Land star Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, Sally Field as a younger Aunt May who's still got it, and Spike from Notting Hill as another animal, scientist Kurt Connors, whose experiments turn him into the Lizard. His powers are... he's a lizard. So in this version, Peter doesn't have weird oozing holes in his wrist, but he does do a lot of skateboarding and parkour. As for the rest of the movie, I don't remember. 2014's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, giving us more background on the intriguing mystery surrounding the death of Peter's parents, a plot thread that's barreling towards resolution. It's gonna be so worth it, guys. It adds Peter's friend, Harry Osborn, who turns into the Green Goblin because that's just what he's supposed to do.
Harry, what did you do?
What you made me do.
And Jamie Foxx as Electro, who gets his powers thanks to genetically engineered electric eels, which is somehow a weirder origin than the comic book version.
I don't know what's going on with me. I can see that. I believe you.
And as if we don't have enough villains, Paul Giamatti as...
I am the Rhino! Look, New York! Spider-Man is back!
Oh, there he is. And yes, for those of you keeping score, that's 2 actors from Sideways who have played Spider-Man villains. Sandra Oh as Black Cat, confirmed. And in the end, well, it's not a Spider-Man series without this scene.
Stay with me, stay with me. Stay with me, stay with me. You stay with me.
So while all this is going on, the Marvel Cinematic Universe starts becoming a big deal. And the folks over there sure do wish they still had the rights to Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Sony disagreed for the most part. Fortunately for them, when there's a complex legal agreement, there's a way.
Thanks to the recent Sony Pictures hacking, we're now learning that talks between Sony and Marvel's parent company, Walt Disney, did in fact happen.
Oh, Mr. Parker.
So the Amazing Spider-Man series was closed, and we're introduced for the 3rd time this century to Peter Parker and his elderly Aunt May. Retroactually, Peter debuts in Iron Man 2 as this terribly irresponsible kid, but we really meet him first in Captain America: Civil War, where his subplot boils down to a billionaire decides to prove he can be a responsible superhero by convincing a child to accompany him to Germany without telling his guardian. That brings us to Spider-Man Homecoming, the start of the 3rd new Spider-Man film series of the millennium. Directed by cop car director John Watts, it resets Peter as a high school student who dreams of being an Avenger like his idol Tony Stark, who has given Peter some upgraded duds and encouraged him to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Person. Meanwhile, following up on the aftermath of the Battle of New York from back in the Avengers, we meet Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, a bad Birdman played by Michael Keaton, who is both a Batman and a Birdman. By the end, Spider-Man gets a fancy new suit and the opportunity to join the Avengers, which Peter declines because he's a child.
I'd rather just stay on the ground for a little while. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's next stop in the MCU was the little scene Avengers Infinity War, where he once again follows Tony Stark all the way to an alien planet where, you know... Folks, he's not real. That takes us to the end of Avengers Endgame. You've all seen Avengers Endgame. Moving on. 2019 Spider-Man Far From Home, the epilogue to Marvel's 3rd phase, where we find that even though the blip took out 50% of the universe's population at random, conveniently, Peter and his primary supporting cast all blip together. So what do you do when you've done nothing for 5 years? You take a vacation with your cool hand-me-down glasses from Uncle Tony that are basically Siri if Siri had access to murder drones, and I'm not comfortable with that.
EDITH stands for Even Dead, I'm the Hero. Tony loved his acronyms.
Also, Nick Fury's constantly in Peter's business as if he doesn't know other people.
I mean, I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, sir.
Bitch, please, you've been to space.
But Peter's in Europe with his best pal and the girl of his dreams, and who do you inevitably meet while traveling around Europe? Jake Gyllenhaal, who's a superhero named Mysterio, from an alternate universe where Mysterio would be a cool superhero name. Yada yada yada, Mysterio dies in the end, but not before setting Peter up for the biggest double whammy cliffhanger Marvel's done so far.
Here's the real blockbuster. Brace yourselves, you might want to sit down.
Spider-Man's name is Peter Parker.
What the
This brings us to No Way Home, where we'll witness the return of Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, Electro, but if I may speculate, also presumably and who definitely do while holding a. And of course, they're presumably accompanied by who's carrying, who's obviously played by character actor Chris Elliott, and that's how we'll learn the secret of what happened to Peter's parents.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Wealth and fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big bang.